I was telling everyone they were idiots. I was like, this is a fake thing. It's a Ponzi scheme. I was wrong. Where did I go wrong there? Where was I off? I still don't understand how the technology has taken off.
They own their own Bitcoin. They're storing their own keys. They have it offline. It's in a hardware wallet. That person, in essence, becomes their own bank.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ambition Aligned. I'm your host, Devon Coombs, CPA, MBA, lecturer at universities, and doing lots of other fun stuff like PCG consulting and advising AI startups. Today, I'm talking to my good friend, Alula, from college. He's a founder and has an expertise in blockchain technology and AI. And we go all over the place. We talk about crypto, we talk about AI, we talk about what I didn't understand about crypto and what I wish I knew. And I learned a ton. So I think it's going to be really valuable for all of you. And I hope you enjoy the show today. Everyone, welcome to Ambition Aligned. I'm your host, Devon Coombs, CPA, MBA, lecturer at universities, and doing lots of other fun stuff like PCG consulting and advising AI startups. Today, I'm talking to my good friend, Alula, from college. He's a founder and has an expertise in blockchain technology and AI. And we go all over the place. We talk about crypto, we talk about AI, we talk about what I didn't understand about crypto and what I wish I knew. And I learned a ton. So I think it's going to be really valuable for all of you. And I hope you enjoy the show today. It feels like yesterday we were in college together. And wow, 10 years goes by pretty fast. And we got to do a reunion or something. But I really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you staying in touch. And would love to hear today more about what you're doing right now. You're working on some amazing projects, and it really excited me to hear some of the businesses that you're building.
Absolutely. And that's great to reconnect. And, I think back of our days at Cal State Northridge, accounting students, business students, and the business honors program is where our paths crossed initially. And it's just a really great and inspiring seeing your journey. Similar to you, I did the public accounting track initially out of school. So just went into public accounting, focusing mostly on tax and technology. Early on during, our time in college at CSUN, I was bitten by the innovation bug, and a big, curiosity really sprung around blockchain technology and what it potentially could mean for the accounting profession around audit, right? So my curiosity at the time was if there's a immutable, perfect ledger record keeping system that could exist that, no one could cheat, no one could manipulate, will the world need as many auditors? And so that thought process, that curiosity really spun an entire career around digital assets. Fortunately, over the years, I did some work in other accounting firms, helped build a SaaS product for digital assets, crypto, and, really focusing on understanding from a data perspective, how to properly track and report activity on blockchains, basically. So, at the end of the day, it's a transparent, fully visible record keeping system. And because of its visibility, anyone could technically query information from there and be able to figure out what happened. So if there's, like I had clients that had various types of activity over the years, whether it's business related activities, investments, or different types of things where they need to report for a tax purpose. What was the gain? What was the loss? What was their overall activity for their business or their personal investments? And so a lot of that data, just being able to get it is one thing, and then being able to communicate from an accounting perspective, from a tax perspective, that's kind of the magic and the art or whatever. So that's kind of where the curiosity started over the past, I'd say, 2-3 years. Whenever ChatGPT came out, I went from being an all tricks, low code, no code guy to all of a sudden learning Python, learning JavaScript, learning all these different programming languages. And, now with the advent of vibe coding and everything else, I'm able to basically spin up a lot of different types of solutions, including AI agents for businesses. And so that's kind of the main focus today. My company I'm the founder of is called Edge Consulting Labs. We're kind of at the intersection between an AI, blockchain, like venture kind of group. And then we're also consultants. And so I advise, existing crypto companies and platforms on strategy. And then I also help enterprise companies and businesses that are interested in accepting crypto or using the technology to be able to implement it. So that's kind of areas of the expertise and how I got here.
How do people send you money, man? You nailed like all of the buzzwords for a successful, fundraising round, like AI, crypto. He just kind of like crushed it all out in one go. I love it. And consulting, right? And so, yeah, so you got to send like a Zelle after this for everyone to just go fund you. Because
Well,
I would,
I accept crypto, so yeah, you could send me stable coins or anything digital.
well, yes, I have so much to pick your brain on. We have a short time, and I'm sure I'll bring you
Yeah.
back on. I want to hear what your business does and how it helps, and I want to build up to that with like a foundational understanding. And I want you to
Sure.
kind of, I think with this dialogue, I want you to tell me where I went wrong. Because I remember when we were in college, crypto was just starting to take off, and Bitcoin that was kind of the main one at the time. There wasn't even these derivatives like Ethereum and whatnot. I think those were just starting to take off about 10 years ago. And I was telling everyone they were idiots. I was like, this is a fake thing. It's a Ponzi scheme. I like the idea of blockchain being auditable, and I could see how that could change companies, but I just can't imagine getting Coke or Kaiser or these companies that have been forever to ever adopt this stuff. And I was wrong. People are using it. I've seen massive companies using stablecoin. Like it's changing the way the world works. And
Right.
so, where did I go wrong there? Where was I off? I still don't understand how the technology has taken off so far and what the real advantage to it is.
I'd say first off, that you were not by yourself. You're not alone during that whole time. I think probably the biggest consensus by everyone really at that time was that hesitation and apprehension to kind of, with the technology or whatever. And I think like the most famous person I remember right around that time was Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan. And, he said the same exact things that you said, right? It's a scam. He'd fire anyone from his company that was dealing with or crypto or anything like that during that time. Um, and yeah, a relatively early phase in the evolution of crypto. I think the total market cap was barely, not even $1 trillion, right? It was before it kind of reached that point in the adoption curve. I'm a big fan of history. I think like for me, I love history. I love learning about humanity and how we've over the millennia interacted with each other, transacted with each other. And throughout all these different periods of time, there's always been different types of currencies that people and governments and societies have accepted. I think today, when you look at Bitcoin, at least for me, when I look at the context of when Bitcoin came out to the public, when it was released, I always think about the period of time after the financial crisis, basically in 2008, 2009. And I think about the banks failing, the government bailing them out, society being upset because here's this massive bailout of banks, but what about the people that lost homes, the people that lost everything that they had during that period of time? And so there was this ideological battle between the people and the establishment in a sense, right? And so I think Bitcoin really did come out as a alternative where you can have a system where you can have individuals being able to transact with each other and to be able to interact financially with each other without the need for a centralized third party, right? Without the need for a central bank, any government or anyone in between. Two individuals could, someone could buy 10,000 Bitcoin, two pizzas. Right. Someone can do all of these things, whether it's good, whether it's bad, they can still transact in this system. You fast forward today and leading up to today too.
Your explanation is great. But it sounds like the value prop that I missed, one of the key ones, is now you have this benchmark for exchange that you can exchange different currencies for without being charged all the different fees that you'd get charged for translating currency. Does that seem like one of the big value propositions that you're saying, or am I missing that?
Yeah, so the fees, that's a big part as well, because there's always intermediaries, people in the middle that kind of facilitate the transfer that are able to collect a fee or make some sort of profit between that interaction. I think additional piece would be the ability for individuals to transact with one another without the need for a centralized party, right? So like, for example, if someone wants to if they have their own Bitcoin, right? And they own their own Bitcoin, they're storing their own keys, they have it offline, it's in a hardware wallet. That person in essence becomes their own bank. That person can get on an airplane with $1 billion in a flash drive and hop on a plane with that $1 billion in their pocket, right? That person has the ability to freely transact They could send payments to people. They could do whatever they wanted. They can, or irrespective of a bank telling them that they have an account with them and that the bank is allowing them to send or wire money across the border or do whatever. I'd say what stood out to me the most would be more like the libertarianish kind of principles behind cryptocurrency, in the sense that it's a self-sovereignty type of currency where you have the ability, if you choose to, manage your own asset and be able to be your own bank in a sense.
That's fascinating. So like, yeah, regulations just didn't keep up. Like when you go to another country, if you have more than $10,000 in your pocket, you got to report it. But it sounds like if you got your flash drive, well, there's a question of, is that really in your pocket or not? Is it somewhere else? And so you kind of get around the regulation, right? The necessary regulation, which is beneficial from a libertarian or capitalist kind of view of, well, now you're not hindering money flows anymore. And now you can have more of a global free market. Is that kind of the argument?
That is a big part of it. Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are countries, do you know if, are there people trying to catch up? Do you know if there's like laws of like, I don't know. I just want to be straight. I don't know. We didn't do the legal research here on what countries have laws about carrying the flash drive in your pocket, but are countries kind of catching wind of this? Do you know, or?
I'm sure there are. Again, this isn't legal advice or anything from either of us, but I'd say, there's reporting requirements. There's a lot of different types. For example, like KYC, right? Know your customer. There's rules that are in place when a person sets up a Coinbase account, for example, that they provide identifiable information, their name, their social security number, their business, the company, and the EIN number. And so from that perspective, there's onboarding and regulatory framework. But yeah, I think it is interesting because, the $10,000 cash limit. But if you have $1 million worth of Bitcoin, I mean, technically, if you just know your seed phrase, for example, the password to accessing your wallet, it's in your head, right? So it's a shift on a lot of like thought processes, right? Like I think a lot of established things, like even now, the new rules around FHA, being able to basically look at your Bitcoin holdings or your crypto holdings and being able to then, lend you money to purchase a home, for example, right? Like things like that have never been, a reality in the past. But today, some kid could have, a Dogecoin, arsenal of tokens and have a lot of capital that way. And, now they can, finance a home or, buy a business or something, right?
Yeah, well, and I want to acknowledge there's I'm sure there's a dark side to it. Like I was in marketplaces before, and there's a whole evil element of human trafficking and that kind of stuff that happens with money laundering and all of that with marketplace. But I'm not going to focus on that here. I just want to say, like, I'm sure that there's an element there, but for the purpose of this conversation, we can kind of steer away from that. I just want to acknowledge it on its face.
Yeah. Actually, I was in New York for a blockchain summit in September. It was a few months ago, but the focus was on regulators and kind of their methodologies and practices for being able to catch a lot of this nefarious activity on blockchains. The first thing that a lot of times people, even in the early days of Bitcoin, had a misconception of, because of you being able to transact freely, you're able to act basically in complete anonymity. And that's actually not the case. Blockchain basically gives what's more of a pseudo-anonymous layer. So, even though I don't know who's doing what, I could track all that on the chain. So I could see, somebody purchased some illegal product on a marketplace. I could see the wallets that are interacting. I could see where they're onboarding and offboarding. A lot of times the regulators or the government agencies or all these different entities, all they have to do is just follow the transactions on the blockchain. And eventually it leads to some sort of on-ramp or off-ramp where a person's identity is actually shown. So it's probably more secure than cash.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you get all the advantages that you're saying, but you actually also have the legal advantage over cash, where like carrying cash over the border is a major problem for buying drugs or pursuing illegal activities. At least the police have a chain of, hey, or the federal regulators have a chain of, hey, here's where these activities are happening, and we know these activities are being purchased, and they can kind of chase down location-wise, at least. Yeah, that's fascinating.
I think one of the biggest areas right now when it comes to crypto-related scams, a lot of times people will exploit the contracts. There's a saying in crypto, the code is law, right? So everything is programmatically designed. So if like there's a smart contract Alula sends Devon an item. When Devon receives the item, payment from Alula's wallet will be automatically sent to Devon's wallet, right? That's programmatically there. Now, what happens is sometimes there's people, really smart kids, a lot of times, that find exploits within these different codes and smart contracts, and they take advantage of that. You've seen kids that are in their 20s racking up 20, 30, 40, 50, million plus in stolen funds. And even in those cases, they steal the funds. They try to wash and launder away the evidence as much as they can. But eventually, that information flows back. And so there's a lot of really big cases currently in the New York courts and in the federal system actually focusing on some of these exploits. So it's a very fascinating space, and data is king. So.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So that helps me understand where I missed. There's a lot of value props here, right? So it sounds like there's value prop of you don't have intermediary fees anymore, similar to like when you had stockbrokers that would charge you commissions. You don't have to worry about changing currency or any of that. You have more of a free market, a global free market, and there's actually some benefits over cash from a legal perspective, and there's just more, and there's some more stability. I guess that argument I struggle with, or like, hey, it's an inflation hedge. It's like, well, it's also very speculative, right? And it's very volatile compared to most, but inflation hedges. But I struggle with that because gold is an inflation hedge too, and it's pretty volatile. Anything else I'm missing there from a primary benefits that are arising?
I would say one of the key primary benefits, at least when we're talking in the context of Bitcoin, would be, I'd say probably one of the number one reasons why Bitcoin is really awesome. And that has to do with its scarcity model. So by design, in existence, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. Now, each Bitcoin, you can technically, like someone has like $1, they could buy $1 worth of Bitcoin today, right? You can, it could be broken down into amounts, but the fact that it's scarce, the fact that there's only 21 million that's ever going to be in existence, I think in the long term, that drives like the, kind of the, like right now what we're seeing is many companies like MicroStrategy and GameStop are now actively putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets, right? They hold treasuries, they keep the Bitcoin, their books look good, they raise more money, they buy more Bitcoin, they continue to do that. But in the future, you might end up seeing a world where these companies end up becoming like banks, basically, right? Where they have massive amounts of Bitcoin holdings. And the world is basically full of all this different type of activity and value. And you have stable coins being able to facilitate daily transactions. But the digital version of gold is a much more scarce version of gold, where, gold technically is infinite because who knows what they could just dig up tomorrow in some country somewhere. But with Bitcoin, there's a finite cap. 53 million or however many millionaires living in the world today, right? If every single millionaire said, I want one Bitcoin or I want some Bitcoin exposure, it's impossible for them to do that. So I think certain aspects of that would be value adds to what Bitcoin represents.
Yeah, it's almost like a global currency at that point. Global store of value, like gold, except more finite. And to your point, I never thought of it that way, is if it does continue to catch on and everyone wants it as an inflation hedge, it's just so strange to me because it has the store of value, but it comes like the ultimate Ponzi or an ultimate like ladder of, well, because it's so scarce and you got to get in and you weren't first, then the next person comes in and buys out. And I don't know what, I guess the only risk I see is what if everyone decides to sell at one time. But that risk hasn't materialized. It actually has been it's been volatile, but steadily, if you look over the last 10 years, it's gone up pretty steadily. So how do you fit in? I mean, if you have any comments on that, I'd love to get your perspective, but also curious about what you're doing in this space or your business particularly, or what's captured interest and how does that interrelate with AI?
More than happy to share that. I think my last thing on the Bitcoin comment was I've never met a single person that has come to me and said, I regret buying Bitcoin. Myself included, and everyone else always says, I wish I bought more Bitcoin. I wish my college tuition Bitcoin instead of, paying for school. I'd take on more debt. That's fine. But you know what? Today would be a lot different, right? So,
yeah.
But in terms of what I do today, so I mentioned earlier, I'm the founder and recently I gave myself the title Chief Innovator of
consulting labs. And so basically what I focus on is building. So I have a personal brand called My Crypto World. That's crypto with a zero and not an O. And so I've always been like a builder in this space. I've always been, developing things and experimenting and learning how this technology works. So basically what our main focus with Edge Consulting Labs is using low code, no code tools and various different types of, solutions out there to build tools and different products and things like that. So right now, our main product that I'm working on is called Edge Flow. And what Edge Flow is basically an inventory intelligence tool for small businesses. So the idea is that most small businesses, you go into a small business, a lot of times like they're, keeping their records in Excel. They have, different types of systems that they're dealing with for ERPs and things like that. But if you ask a business owner, hey, what is your cost of goods sold for a particular item that they deal with in their inventory? 9 out of 10 times, most of those business owners won't know the answer right off the bat. And so that's what Edgeflow is trying to solve. Basically, what we do is we have an integration capability where we can connect to different types of ERP systems or self-managed Excel spreadsheets. We are able to take the data regarding inventory and then tokenize those real world assets. So create a digital twin, a representation of that using the Hedera blockchain. And then the business owner has a tool that they can interact with to ask questions or figure out what's going on with their business. And so
What is the blockchain? Why the blockchain? What does that add to it?
So Flow initially is focusing on inventory. Our goal is to get into payments. And so the first part is creating digital real world representations of items. So think like a luxury jeweler, for example, has a bunch of inventory. She maintains a lot of her information manually or uses some ERP system, but a lot of the visibility into the business isn't really there. And so with Edgeflow, we're able to create digital twins for all of the different items that she has in her inventory. And then through Edge POS, basically, which is our POS system, we're able to integrate Circle, which is the parent company for USDC, their payment network. And through that, using stablecoins, a small business is able to lower their credit card processing fees from upwards of 2.9% all the way down to 0.1% using the stablecoins. So that's kind of the main focus there. It's giving the businesses insights into their operations and then lowering their operating costs associated with transaction fees. And throughout that whole time, the blockchain, when someone purchases an item, that digital twin, the NFT, is given to the person who's purchasing it in exchange for the USDC token, basically. So it's a kind of a way to take a real world asset and create a digital copy to allow a transaction to run.
Wow. Okay. So here are a few advantages here. And I just want to make sure I'm following.
Sure.
So when you're doing this, first is if someone's to make a payment for this asset, your platform would then be able to transfer that payment or process that payment with less fees because you're using the blockchain.
Exactly.
Is that the right? Am I saying, okay.
Exactly.
Second is now I know when you're with inventory management, it's a mess for most companies because they are using Excels or even ERPs, or if you acquire even the bigger companies, you're acquiring a lot of small companies. It's really hard to standardize. See all these fragmented systems. If you migrate through your system, it all goes through the blockchain. So it's all auditable now. You know where things are going and where they're coming, and it's all becomes standardized. And you can implement, it sounds like you have APIs to bring it all in from different systems to standardize it.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's really, I feel like today there's a lot of really powerful tools out there. And so I'm actually a resale partner and affiliate for N8N. So I mentioned before
great. I know
that,
N8N.
So, using tools like and you're actually able to create these automated processes where you can ingest data. You can then kick off. It's almost like an orchestration engine, basically. And you can then have the ability to create the tokens, create the payments logic so that the tokens are transferred one by one. And then you're also able to create the logic for kicking off AI agents as well. So the idea is, we have like an ongoing spreadsheet that is basically being updated in real time as things are being added and things are being sold. The AI model is able to feed from that information. And then, a small business owner could say, hey, what were my sales for today? Right? Here's all the information. Here's your top selling item. Here's some items that you need to restock up on, right? Like all of these little things where
for the small business, it's really a matter of empowering them because, just like back in the day, they said in the future, there will be a personal computer in every home. Well, we're past that. We have personal computers in our pockets at all times, our cell phones. And so now we're at the point where in the future, everyone should have their own personal AI assistant. And so that's what we're aiming for at Edge.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can't imagine how valuable it'd be just to speak to your phone. I already use ChatGPT and Gemini and all of them and compare each other way too much. But just to call, it's like calling somebody and being like, hey, how was my inventory? What were my cost of sales? Hey, did you process the payments? Did we collect the payments for it? What was my average fee? How much am I saving from this? For people watching this who don't know, it takes companies sometimes 30 days, 60 days to close the books, just to figure out what was sold. And then you have these aggressive inventory management and physical management systems that you have to overlay. And it sounds like this could solve a lot of it. I guess, how do you think of if inventory gets lost or if inventory breaks, like breakage or theft, would this help with that too?
So there's a couple elements. Someone asked a really great question today in our Dara Hello Feature Hackathon working session, and it was around real world assets. They said, okay, what if someone has a car, right? And the car gets damaged, right? How do you update that in the NFT? And so there's caveats to different edge cases. I think with the car one, my example for them was almost like there would be kind of like a third party service where it's called like an oracle, where let's say it's like an appraisal service that someone specifically provides to this network. And their job is just basically to validate that the vehicle is still in the same condition that it's in, or if there was some damages, what's the new value for it? And then that information, their decision updates the logic associated with the NFT so that there's now metadata and tags that updated to the current state of it. Now, with the case of items that are missing, at least with Edgeflow, the way that I've designed it is there's two parts to it. So one is like a manual piece where you can update information, add information, whether it's like SKU numbers or descriptions or values. So part of it could be, the ability for an owner to just go in and say, hey, these items were lost in a fire or some sort of.
No, I know. It's clicking with me now. It's a completeness thing. So the blockchain's complete and never is going to get deleted or anything. But so you're always going to know what was originally a sale. It's just as the data migrates, you can tag it with metadata that's going to state this doesn't exist anymore. It was broken or destroyed or something, but that still keeps the flow alive, which is actually really valuable from an audit perspective. You can't change the past. There's a true time and audit log associated with it.
Exactly. So it wouldn't be a case of hey, I'm just going to delete all of this inventory from my books after I would, all of that.
Lower my cost of sales.
The ability to update information, the ability to have a updated provenance and understanding of what exactly is going on and how the values are transacting over time. I think that piece is there. And then, then it opens up a lot of doors because what you're able to do now is create logic, right? So you could say based off of these tags, this is how you recognize information that's tagged as a loss, for example, right? And we won't, because it's a lost item, there's no way that someone could sell that item, right? So if it's lost, it's lost. Even if it's on the books, it'll never be sold.
It's so cool. So I'm curious, how do you make sure that a blockchain links to an existing item on day one? Could there be fraudulent inclusions of inventory?
Yeah.
Or how do you prevent that?
And so you're saying in the beginning, someone could just say, hey, I have $1 million worth of inventory. Yeah, I'm going to go to the bank now and show them this information. And,
Yeah, exactly.
So from that perspective, and that's a great question. I think first off, it's the focus of this tool. You think about it like any of these personal finance apps that are out there, right? I can plug in my checking account to these personal. Some of them have capabilities where it's you can adjust information in there or whatever, but no one's going to look at the personal finance app and say, because of the XYZ app, we're going to lend you money or something. The goal of Edgeflow is really to give small businesses a tool that allows them to actually be able to run their businesses better. So for them, it benefits them to be honest. It benefits them to be truthful. It benefits them to be transparent because for them, they're getting access to a tool that then will allow them to be better at running their business, to improve how they actually operate. You can create millions of fake items, but then you'll never get the sale because no one's going to buy those fake items because someone goes to your store and they're like, okay, I want to buy all the donut shop, for example. You say you baked 1,000,000 donuts today, you're going to sell 1,000,000 donuts, but at the end of the day, you only sell a few dozen because that's all you really have. The real world piece is really the connection between the digital and the physical. The physical is missing. You could have the digital all you want, but there's no real physical kind of economic value that's being created. Now, let's hypothetically you did create 1,000,000 token for your donuts, and you over the years create 1,000,000 donuts, and every time you sell a donut, you issue a token. Dunkin' Donuts could be a great customer in that case, right?
Yeah, I guess that it makes perfect sense to me. I was in the financial due diligence kind of mindset. I had a client once who, we're looking at a target, and the target said they had all this stuff, and then once we got there, none of it existed, and they were just inflating their. And so that's why you hire financial due diligence experts, because we go and audit your stuff, and you go, hey, you probably shouldn't buy this company for $30 million, so you have nothing that they've promised or purport to have. And so that's what I was thinking. And you're saying, hey, that's not the point of the tool. At the end of the day, you still need someone to go and make sure the stuff is actually there. That's awesome, man.
And even for the auditor, this benefits the auditors more, because here's an immutable record that says this is what's supposed to be there. And when you're doing your physical inspection and you're doing an inventory and you're like, hey, I only see 3 dozen donuts here.
Yeah. I got another chain here, but then I also want to leave space for you to tell me kind of what you're working on next and how the audience could support you. But the chain is, that brings up an interesting phase of human elements in AI. And so I'll lead with I'm using AI more than I ever thought I would, to help me prepare for my college lectures. So I'll give you an example. Today, I was trying to figure out, how do I reframe a business 101 lecture to start off the course to match all the learning objectives, but weave in my personal narrative journey of businesses I've started that have failed and businesses that have done well. Wow. And I was able to leverage a book, benchmark against the book, put against stories I've written about my own businesses, and tie that all into an outline, and then create a slide presentation that's probably in the top 1% of anything we ever got in college in an hour and a half. That's kind of how I'm using AI day to day. And I'm always curious, since you're on the forefront of this, are you doing similar things, or how are you imagining how humans and AI interact, and how are you benefiting from it since you're on the forefront?
Absolutely, man. A firm believer that AI is a powerful tool that can enhance our capabilities. I feel it's an additional benefit to leverage AI, because I can use AI tools for everything from helping me manage my social media presence, helping me evaluate different deals and prospecting, helping me with coding, programming, prototyping, planning trips, personal kind of things. It's a very powerful tool to allow us to do a lot of different things. I have family members that are older, and my mom, they love using ChatGPT. They use it all the time for various types of things, right? I was at an event at Cal State Northridge not too long ago. It was the Workforce of the Future. They had IBM speaking there. One of the speakers had a very interesting quote. They said, "Don't worry about AI taking your job. Worry about the person who knows AI taking your job." And I think AI is the ultimate equalizer and massive opportunity for us. So the fact that you as a professor are using it in preparing your curriculum, personalizing it, aligning with what it is that you want to the students, I think is exactly what AI's capabilities and benefits are for. It's more than just putting in text and getting a response and just running it. It's you analyze, you think about it, you use multiple tools. You don't just use one. There's so many facets to it. And also you don't rely upon it to think for you. You use it as a tool to enhance your abilities and everything. A very powerful agent for us, for the AIs, right?
Oh, no, it's awesome. I'm curious, because that's something I've been wanting to pick since you're so embedded in this space, and you'd be surprised how many people aren't, right? It's still something at least in the accounting world, I read a report from the CPA saying less than 8% of professionals are using any AI tool. And the big four, from what I'm aware of, they're not even allowed to on the jobs because of security issues. And so to me, it's this is a big hindrance. You guys are going to be way behind pretty fast. To your point, the people who know AI are going to take your jobs. What I'm worrying about is students. It's so interesting. And I'm curious to your perspective. I've been trying to how do I design a course where I almost feel like multiple choice are kind of a thing of the past. Like, what's the point of having a multiple choice exam when all of the world's knowledge is not just a search away, but like even faster? You can grapple with it. And so I've been trying to rephrase, like, are essay questions or live discussions going to become more valuable? Because I'm seeing that. I'm just curious on your thoughts, because I'm seeing it on when I do interviews or when I meet with people. You can tell the people who know something, like yourself, you're clearly an expert. You're clearly like, man, I just want to talk to you forever about this. But you see people who are like, oh, I need to go check. Oh, I need to go research this, because you can already see, especially the younger generation is reliant on AI. And so it's like, how do you get comfortable knowing and understanding the topic, knowing that people are probably past the point of being grilled to learn material?
It's a great question. I think our generation is very fortunate because we grew up in an era where, like I remember dial-up internet, right? Like I remember like all these things. So it's like the world has completely changed. And so today, like kids, like even younger kids, like our kids, for example, like now there's, kind of discussion around AI for children, right? And things like that. And for me, I feel like those social issues are massive areas where there needs to be like a collective decision, right? It's kind of one of those things where it's almost like within academia, for example, like the future of academia, like there has to be kind of like a common consensus of some sort around best practices and how to prepare students. It's kind of challenging because it's like at the same time, it's like, you're going to have different styles of teaching. You're going to have different goals. But I think like recently there was someone who was speaking about, some politician was talking about no need for learning how to code. AI is going to code for you, right? And I had made a comment on Instagram about, hey, if AI could code, what's the point of learning to code? I could just go to Cursor and type in what I want and prompt it. And all of a sudden I have a UI. I can create a prototype. I can do all these things. And interestingly enough, the people that commented, a lot of the software engineers and the career CS people, they were adamantly against what I was saying. Of course not. You're going to need a deep insights and understanding and all that. And so I think in terms of what people need, I think question formats like multiple choice, testing people on their actual knowledge is the key. Like if it's a multiple choice, if it's a project, if it's, whatever, like if someone uses AI or someone doesn't use AI, it's like understanding how to get to the answer is the key, like asking a question that maybe if you ask ChatGPT, you'll get 3 or 4 different things. But really, if you understand this topic, you'll reach this final answer. That is the same final answer as someone who doesn't use ChatGPT. Right? Expecting everyone to say, hey, to take one side or the other, it's just not going to work. Some people are just not going to learn how to code. No one need to learn how to code. For entrepreneurs, for business students, it's a brilliant time to be alive because now you have an idea, go build a prototype. You could just watch a video, build a prototype. And
it's so cool. So I think I love what you're saying, because that's kind of, I've approached, I met so many professors or teachers who are like, you got to disclaim if you're using ChatGPT. We have an honor code here. And I think the best thing is just to assume they're all going to use it. Assume everyone's going to use it. And let's just figure out a way to still teach the material despite it. So maybe don't give essay questions to take home. Like that's probably, they're going to solve that one pretty fast. Any smart kid's going to just dump that in. But like, can you have discussion prompts? Can we up-level ourselves to keep that profession? We can do better. They don't need to worry about that anymore. We can get them to really understand the heart of the material.
Exactly. And I remember when we were in school, when they had the graded curves in the class, It used to drive me crazy because, we were the good students. We were busting our butts. We were studying. But sometimes, you have some students that would be helping each other or whatever. And that would screw up the curve for the class, right? So if anything, what AI has done now is it's raising the bar, because at a very bare minimum, if you use AI, you should get the answer. And then, so it's almost like it raises the bar, where it's like, okay, either you're learning the topic and you're excelling and you're able to compete against people who use AI, or you're able to use whatever tools is around you to be able to get to the right answer. But either way, the bar is now raised because the wrong answer is no longer acceptable. Like there should be no, if you're allowing your students to use AI, then man, they're like a C isn't passed. Like everyone should have a B+ or more.
Like a reverse curve.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a curve.
I like it. Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, you fail if you get below a 95. Guys, like you should be acing this. Like, that's hilarious.
Exactly.
That's actually a really interesting idea. Okay, I got to ask you because I'm just really curious since you're in it. Have you found any weird prompts or like models that you are specifically using that you're like, hey, this is really cool, and I don't think other people are using it this way?
My recent one, probably not even a new one. There's probably a lot of people that do it, but what I like to do is basically like I'm working on a project and I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, or I like Gemini more recently. I've just been using that more, but whatever
Yeah,
tool I'm
2.5
using.
Pro is pretty solid.
Excellent. Yes. So I'll just say, hey, we're partners in this right here. Like you're going to be my lead developer, my partner, so just like having that element where it's like, okay, we're working on this together. And then throwing in additional things. I was doing an application for some venture fund and wanted to sign up. So a GPT and the models that I was working with say, imagine you are the reviewer. What are areas where I fall short or where I can improve, right? And so like having that dialogue of back and forth versus just taking the first response that you get back and saying that this is, the best thing possible is actually really helpful.
No, it is. I really like the partner one, and that's like I'll throw one at you that I've done is like I'll find. Well, first off, best practice. You can't just rely on it. It's an extension of thinking, and I found it's really valuable for like I'm pretty scatterbrained and creative and open, and my problem is I focus on too many different things, and having it help me think through a thought to the end is so helpful. But you got to go battle with it through the chain. What I've done is I'll be like, rate this idea. Like, rate this. If you are an expert in this field, rate the idea from 1 to 10 over these different areas. Where am I missing it? Like, where could I do better? And then I'll be like, give it to another model. I'll be like, play devil's advocate. Where did they get this wrong? And you can use it to think of, to like really assess the full picture of a situation. And then you have to still come in with judgment and be like, I disagree with this. I agree with this. But man, your thinking power just so similar. I like the idea of saying it's a partner though. Hey, you're a partner in this. Help me figure it out and help me battle to understand, or help me check if you were to review this, what would throw you off? And changing those roles really will change how it responds.
Absolutely.
It's cool, man.
And yeah, and I really like your approach as well because, going point by point and looking at where things could be improved, I think it is a very valuable take as well because, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like there's confirmation bias. There's all these issues that are existent with an AI. You can have a model hallucinate. You can have all these, that becomes huge risk, right? So you want to be able to mitigate that as much as possible. And I think the more that you're looking at things strategically, the better, because that allows the model to refine itself and really get you a better response.
Oh, cool. No, thanks for going down that rabbit hole with me, man. What are you working on next? How could we all support you? And what's next in the future for you? So next time I want to check in on all the success that you're having.
Absolutely. So I'd say the most exciting part besides the Edge Flow and the Hello Feature Hackathon, which I really, really am excited about. I think the Alula Z.xyz release is one of my next projects as well. So working with basically like the P token community, the We All community, there's basically like this whole co-op of decentralized participants. We're putting together AI for real estate, AI for accounting, AI for tax. And basically it's just like courses. And then also there's like communities and materials to really just like focus on empowering small businesses. So I'd say if anyone's interested on X or any of the social media, My Crypto World with a 0, and then alulaz.xyz, once this launches, you can catch that as well for more content about education and everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put in the links, man. If you ever need a guest speaker or anything, more than happy to show up. So then I ask everybody, I just do like a rapid fire at the end because I'm always just curious to keep it a little light. What's your favorite? What do you prefer? Sweet or savory?
Oh, it's a good one.
What's your favorite dessert? Yeah, I got a sweet tooth too.
Yeah. Whole Foods tres leches.
Oh, Whole Foods specifically.
Yeah. I don't know what they do with their tres leches. Whole Foods got me hooked. So.
And they do a really good like berry cake too. Some of that stuff's really good, man. Winter is a deadly season for me. I gotta cut before winter because I'll just gain 15 pounds.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite thing or least favorite piece of advice that everyone gives?
I have to say it's parenting advice around when you're a first-time parent, you're about to have kids, and people tell you you'll lose sleep. I always felt like, why would leading up to it, why are you negative about But then when I had my kid, he was a perfect sleeper. So we were like, okay, this wasn't even true.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's something really important. I wish the dialogue would change there, where we could stay more positive, because there's a lot of people not having kids anymore because we're so negative, and there's so many rewarding, beautiful parts of having a family. Like, I've never met anyone where I was like, hey, do you wish you didn't have the kid? And they're like, oh yeah, I would totally just throw them in the ocean. Like that you never get anyone saying that stuff. Even the bad parents still want to show up for the kids. So I wish that's a message that people need to understand more. And then out of everything we talked about today, what do you wish the audience would leave with? Like, if you could say one thing to everybody, what's the one thing you wish they would leave with today?
I would say for specifically like maybe your audience or, people coming from that traditional finance, academia, like that world, I would say jump in when it comes to AI, Web3. I think like learning, getting some sort of involvement in that space is really a really big opportunity today. I think there's a growing trend where people who have these skills that people in the traditional, finance, accounting, all that have, there's a huge need for those skills within this new kind of economy that's being created within the digital asset world and AI and everything else. So I would say just, jump on board, learn a new skill, have some fun, experiment. And that'd probably be the takeaways.
I love it, Alula. And it was a pleasure. I'm really glad we caught up again. Hope you'd come on again some other time, could give us an update on how the hackathon and everything goes. Best of luck on